Hi and welcome to the sixth episode of BlazQ. Today is a kind of our mid-season final. After 6 or 5 episodes before, we constantly working to our goal of creating a game. And today it's time to get this game live, to deploy to the cloud. Um, and yeah, getting ready. Last.NET Conf here. I've watched a lot, I guess. I think it was nearly the entire conference. Anyway, um, yeah. Okay, so what I wanted to do, let's start by um, going briefly through the slides, then we can discuss. Okay, so yeah, as I said today, our goal is that we can use that we deploy our app into a cloud environment, that we can use it everywhere. That's our intention. So we're going briefly through learning values, as I said before. We're going to kind of report. Again, we had um, some viewers, it's still looking kind of up and down, which is also not bad. Um, our total views have increased so far, which is also great. And yeah, hi Pete. And yeah, so I would say it's like personally, I've gotten a kind of I wouldn't say mood, but in a way of creating kind of routine behavior around it, and which is a thing I'm kind of proud of. And yeah, I think if I were to kind of summarize up, it's like there's progress, but slowly but steady. And I'm really looking forward to the next episodes where we really go into the online multiplayer thing. Okay. So as I said today, I don't want anyway, if you have a kind of question regarding a talk in particular, like one yeah one particular topic, you can also ask, especially regarding Blazor was some nice feature introduced, showed, I think, at the last .NET Conf. Okay, so here we are, and okay. Um, as usual, we starting by cloning the repository, and open PowerShell, git object clone. And it's good to have you back. I really like this kind of yeah, kind of relationship. Um, it's nice. It's nice to have company. It's always a nice thing. Okay, so before we start deploying our application, there's one tiny thing we haven't really done before, which is a counter. So um, we want to have um, like a counter for each question, and when the question ends, yeah, yeah, and when the question ends, it's like sorry. Sometimes when I start reading things and I want to save things at the same time, it's a mess up in my head. Anyway, so I need to really focus on one thing, either reading or talking. Um, yeah, so we want to create a kind of counter. So if the counter raises to 0, the question ends, and which creates a kind of not pressure in this sense, but also a kind of interesting game element for our quiz here. Um, thank you. It's very nice to see, but believe me, a lot of preparation, and I've I've done so many mistakes, and I constantly do. It's like if you have done enough mistakes in your life, you have like a repository, and then you remember, I've done already this wrong, so this time I can avoid it. Um, it's yeah. But again, I think this is really the interesting part about software development. You can never, it's nothing like, or it's never like you could see, you really have understood, and you have really, or otherwise, putting other words, you will be never at the point where you don't learn anything new. You will always be surprised about how you can do things differently. And sometimes these paths are successful and sometimes they are not. And again, this is what I really like and also about this type here, because it's live. It's also a kind of, again, I don't want to use the word pressure here, but it makes an interesting challenge for your mind to really see if you have, if your mind has connected all the dots, so you could talk about it, um, not without preparation, but really just if it's like in your kind of active knowledge. And yeah, this is a great thing. Okay, so going back to our counter, we want to have our counter in, I'm just starting the game that we see where we are. So we're going into new terminal, .NET, watch and run. So just seeing where we are, and new tab, localhost. Loading. I want to have the counter like in this position here. So right in the middle of the screen above the question. And to do so, we need to um, we need to add it into our game session page inside this header. And we starting, hmm, here we have a, wait, we have a kind of mistake, a small thing here. I stop, I close, and for some reason, it seems like the assets have been kind of preloaded but wrong. Okay, better. Release notes, also interesting. Better. So here we are. Restore dependencies. So, and regarding your other questions like authentication, I really love authentication stuff to be honest. And I don't know why, because really I would say most questions regarding Blazor on Stack Overflow are with authentication. Um, so if you could specify your question, maybe I can give you a kind of hint too. So anyway, back to our header. So in our header, I want to implement the possibility to add a kind of um, um, it's good to create a kind of additional content here. So we go into our header, share it, header. So, and I want to introduce a new class, which is lower header container. And in this container, we have lower header. And I create a kind of new render fragment, which I call additional content. Content spelled right. And here I want to have lower header, additional content formatted properly. I go in here into our header, I say additional content. I say additional content, and then just it's a countdown, I guess. And I just want to have like a static number here. Um, so now we're reading your question. I will have at the end we can really talk about it. Seems like yeah, at the end really. I take my time. I'll go through a repo and I will definitely come back to you. Okay. Well, additional content. So now he complains because if I have a name thing, I need also have another, like this should be inside um, our header. I saving my file, I open terminal.net watch and run. As I said, I'm really keen to talk about it, but again, we will find a kind of different type of session. Okay, so one thing back. So we have already here. So what we do need to do now, we need to put it in the middle. So here we have the class, um, the head element, and I want to put it into a div for now. Okay, start game. Here we are. So let's talk about the reload. Here's my div. So let's say I want to add some new classes. So I want to add a new class and the classical display flags. So didn't change a lot. I want to kind of should be everywhere. Um, so now like we have these sides. I put it into flags column. It's great. Now it's like the entire thing already. Flags, align, items, center. So here we are. Here we have our classes. We can add here. So okay. So first step is to having this kind of element right in the middle. So now we have like we are optical finished. So now it's a good idea to because this should be our countdown components, so like counting down until zero, and then moving to the next question. Okay, it's like from the visual side of things, it's finished. Now what we do, we trying to extract it to a new component. So I create a new file. I call it countdown.razor. I'm taking this with me. Here we are. I adding a code block because maybe later we'll need it. And oops, here we are. And I just entered a countdown thing. So if I haven't done anything wrong, it should look exactly the same because all we have to do is like we have extracted a component, part of the HTML tree. Okay, that's a good thing. So now we need to put the live into the counter. And the good thing about .NET is usually there's always a class helping you. So we could use the system.threading library. In this library, we have something which is called a timer. So protected override void on initialized. Here we are. Okay, if my component is initialized, so like it's first time added to the tree, I want to create a new timer. And while doing so, I can specify a timer callback, an object state, and a period, and a due time and period. So these four elements. Let's start to talk about the timer callback. Um, a callback in general is a method, a function, which is called by another function. And we can create, we can provide a kind of object, a kind of state here. And we have like a due time, so how after the time is initialized, how long is the initial delay to kick off callback callback method, and how and after that in which time of period it should happen again. So we creating for now our callback. So private void um, timer has ticked. So instead of a 20, we're creating something like value. Initializing is maybe to 20. And here we are. And our time back, we're decreasing our value. So I initialized with timer has ticked. I don't want to have any object. By the way, I need to have an object. And this object is unused as name to make it clear that we don't use the object. So we have time has ticked, null, due time, I say time span from seconds. So our um, our counter should start after 1 second. So like 20, the first timer would be 19. And after that should be like reoccurring every other second too. So the same thing again, time span from seconds, 1. Okay. So if we, because I created the file new, .NET Watch is not working, but now it would work. So the thing is, I don't see anything, but I can promise it's working, not just visually. So there's one thing here. Even our timer is decreasing, and I want to show the debugger, so we're stopping. We stop the watch thing here. I put in a breakpoint and starting the debugger. Oh, short period of sleep today. Um, mm, mm, mm. So I start our game, and we see value is 20, now it's 19. Next second, 19, 18, and so on. So it seems like our timer callback is working, but for some reason, we don't see an update here. So we have here like, I could say our logic is working. We have just an update problem. And this is where the function state has changed come into place. Now we can inform the Blazor framework that for some reason, our component needs to be re-rendered. So I put it in here. I'm starting it again. And you're starting with the debugger. So we go to start game. And now we can see it's working. Our seconds are decreasing. Okay, we're stopping it from here. I close the debugger. I go again and starting it while watching. There's one tiny thing here, um, which is deeply kind of ingrained in the way Blazor is working and asynchronous programming is working in .NET. So to make it a kind of better and also working with in other circumstances, it would be great to put the state has changed into like a method which kind of helping the UI to keep in sync and sort of we need to change a bit here. So again, this is a method um, as we see in the descriptions like Blazor don't have really these concepts of different threads because it's like single threaded. But in general, if you think about a classical application, it's always like only one level of process is allowed to modify the UI and to kind of recreate this feeling. And also the need maybe later versions, it's like we can use invoke async to make a call to the kind of sub process which is responsible for the UI. So and we're giving status change here. Again, looks entirely the same. So we have nothing changed from a perspective of functionality, but just from yeah. So working as we thought it could be. Ding ding. Amazing. Okay, we see soon we reach a point where our countdown will decrease to 0. First we can improve. So if value equals 0 would be great to kind of stop our timer here, that we um, don't count further. And there's a function which is called change. And if we go into, we can change the both our timer. And here it says start immediately. Mhm. Here to prevent specify system timer to prevent the timer from restarting. So we set timeout.infinity, timeout.infinity, and the same is true for period. Um, timeout infinity disable. So timeout.infinity. So and I decrease 20 to 5 to make it a kind of faster. So what we're expecting now, counter reaches 0 and won't be counting further down. Of course, you could argue, um, and yeah, so our timer has changed here. Well, our timer component is not yet connected to our game session page, so the entire component here. But we could do it by creating a so-called event callback. And let's say like countdown finished. Finished, finished. Get stat, and it should be parameter. And if we have reached this 0, we change the timer, and then we invoke a sync. And because it's a sync, you can await in front of. So now our countdown can inform any other kind of consumer component about um, about its about that time has finished or it's come to an end. Okay, countdown finished. So now we can go here into our content and we say like timer elapsed. Timer elapsed. We're scrolling down. private void time elapsed. And it would be great to just show the answer in this case. So let us see. Let us see what we have done so far. So we can see the timer and hmm. Oh, show answers true, not false. Okay. Okay. So now we can already see if our timer has finished. We see the answer. There's one thing, as you can see, I can still use my player keys, which is not something which is kind of wrong with the countdown. It's just like a kind of side effect from our programming before. So we go into our thing where we handle the key, which is here, and we say in general, if show answers true, don't do anything. Don't accept any keys unless it is enter. Yeah, unless it is enter. So, okay, finish or saving. And now it shouldn't be possible to hit our player key as soon as there are any answers. I can't do something here differently. Okay, first step finished. So now, if I restart the game, if I want to hit my player key here, I think it would be fair that the countdown just stopped and not counting down anymore. So I have kind of second thing and I can push other buttons or using the Joker from last time. So now we need to stop. We need to stop the counter. And when do we need to stop the counter? As soon as we have found here. As soon as we have found someone who has pushed his player key. So it would be great to have something like countdown dot stop. So I need to interact with the component itself. So it would be great to have a kind of reference to the component. And this is something the Blazor framework can do for us. Oops, dip, 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 dip. A little bit long here. So we providing a new variable called countdown of type countdown. And these component here, our countdown should be referred or referenced by countdown here, which give us a good opportunity to write the stop function here, public void stop. And we already have stopped the timer once, so we could use it here. And because we don't want to repeat ourselves, put here a stop function. So okay, okay. So what we're expecting now is if I start a game, 5, 4, I hit my player key, and you can see 3, 2. Unfortunately, it's not coming back in any way now, but we have already mastered to stop timer. Now it's interesting at which time it should be unfreeze or resume its work. And we can think we have also, if you remember the nailing thing, where we can choose another one. However, as soon as someone has submitted an answer. This is the time where we unfreeze the timer. By the way, I like freeze much more than stop. I change it to freeze. Um, so, and we have here our option, like option selected is here, not, not no players active, answers correct, show answers, still we don't need to resume or unfreeze the timer, also not in this case, but so if someone hasn't found or chosen the right answer, and if not, even was the kind of last player who could answer, then we want to resume our timer or unfreeze. I think for me it sounds better. So if we have a freeze, we have also an unfreeze. And what we do, we say, I want to change. I want to start again, time spent from seconds. I want to. So if we starting with a delay of 1 second, which is the first argument here, there is a kind of possibility that someone, let's say, hit its player key while the counter has 2.5 from second perspective. So he would gain another half second or another entire second before it counts down to half a second, in this case, half a second, before it counts down to the next number. Sorry, it was a long, long night. Um, and a long week also. Um, so it's like we could also start immediately, but then we would like taking away half a second from the candidate or from the player. So either way, it's not ideal. But I think it's not really a problem, so we just stick with 1 second, and from 1 second, unfreeze is finished. So we're saving all files, and there's an error. There's no stop method. Ah, because it should be freeze here. Okay, I start the game. Four, I hit my player key. It's frozen. I choose an answer, and it goes further. Okay, unfreeze is finished too. So, and just to make a point, it's also working with the nailing joker. I hit my player key, I hit the nail joker, I choose a different player, still stopping, and I choose an answer, and it moves on. Perfect. Okay, next thing is like if I go to the next question, the timer should be reset itself. Reset back to, in this case, 5, which is not high, and we will change later, but we need to reset it in any way. Okay, so let's find out where we need to reset it. And as soon as we move to next question. So if there's a next question, I would say reset. We go into the countdown, public, oops, public void reset. And what does reset mean? It would be mean to say our value should be 5. And in case, which could be that our counter has been frozen before, I want to unfreeze it. Was it data already? No. Okay. Okay, I stop. It's free. I choose the right answer. Still free. I go into the next question. 5, 4. Okay, which is perfect, and it's working again every time. Soon here. Okay, so our reset is working. What would be nice, I set just 5 as a hard-coded value here. Would be nice if I could change it to like initial value. So in this time I create a new method in the countout first and set like start. And start expecting a kind of value, or not value, let's say like seconds. And I'm creating here like initial value. Initial value is seconds. And then I do a reset. And reset, don't set it to 5, but set it to initial value. And I use the start method in our game session page. In our game session page here. In a very awesome protected override void. And if our game session page is rendered for the first time and only then, I want to set our countdown start, let's say with 20 seconds or maybe 30 seconds. Well, I'm really tired today. So, what's the interesting thing? First, we have protected override void, which is here. That's an easy fix. And I want to reload it again. You see it's like 5, 29, 28. So in some cases, it seems like still a 5 is somewhere in here because we have here the initialized thing. And where do we else have a 5? Like a value. Value shouldn't be 5 at the beginning, right? So we need to kind of just small changes here. So if we start our timer, we start our timer. Initial value is seconds and value is initial value. We saving it. And still the 5 here, which is strange because there is no 5 here. Ah, there we are. Value, initial value. So start game. We still have the first um still have the first thing here, like the 0. So I hope you have seen it before. It's like 1 second, then we go to 29. The reason is our game session page, we set our our start reset. Reset has unfreeze. Unfreeze is here. Change our timer, which is great. And if we're going back to start, we could use also here our same trick. Sync void and await invoke a sync. And state has changed. Now we are That's the point. Again, why was this necessary? We initialized the timer in the after render sync method. After render sync method. It should be right on top. Yeah. So, and it's like this method wouldn't call another another render cycle, or wouldn't kick off another render cycle by itself. So we're just giving a little hint. If our countdown has like initialized, we want to invoke state has changed. And we by doing so we creating kind of fractionless experience. So like 30 and counting constantly down. So if I choosing it's still like pausing. I'm choosing the wrong answer. It continues. I choose the right, even also wrong answer. And it still doesn't continue further. I go to the next question, and it resets. So we have everything what we needed from the counterpart. There's only again one tiny thing which is more frameworks and understanding. I want to implement the so-called idisposable interface. What idisposable means is like as soon as the component is removed from the tree, um, we should freeze and we should release our timer or supposing it to. Otherwise, it is possible, I mean, not in the context of our application, or it wouldn't be very impactful on our application. But if we don't stop it here, it's very likely that we have a kind of memory leak here. So if the dispose method, first we ensure that it's not counting further. And we also ensure that the timer can't be used anymore. Yeah, and having all of this done, our first part is finished. Our counter is working here as expected. Break, 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 break. Continue. Okay. This was the first part of today. It was like something we was missing from last time. But now we are here. We have like the entire game how I wanted to, yeah, how I find it's useful in the kind of couch co-op mode. It's now working, and we have now to think about a way to make it run on the internet in a way that we have someone who is providing it for us. Because what we have done so far, we have always used like components like commands like .NET Watch or the compile debugger, which is also like a command of .NET Run to do it. But let's let's take a minute and think about what is the kind of Blazor application in this context here. I stop Watcher. Doop, 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 doop. And what I do now is like I'm doing a .NET publish. And with publish, I say I want to have an output here like my term publish. So what publish does, it's like a next stage after run. So yeah, it's like it's getting the application in a kind of deployable state, so we can push it somewhere. And we see it's starting with restoring the package, which is the same we would do with the .NET Run. And now we have the same the first thing, which is different, compressing Blazor WebAssembly publish artifacts. And in a few moments you will see what it meant. Okay, here. Publish has created this output here. So we see we have like a web config file. Okay, it's something very related to one particular Microsoft technology, which is the IRS. Not interesting for us. Then we have a www root folder where we can see from each of these we have like a version with a .br and .js. It's like I will pronounce it probably wrong. There are two different compression algorithms. Like one is the GZ, like general zip, or maybe totally different. Broke broadly, I think it was compression yay. Um, yeah, and the other is gzip. I'm not really sure what gzip means, to be honest. It's like curious. Has any meaning? Gzip. Yeah. Hmm. Ah, general. Okay, GNU. Okay, makes sense. Anyway, back to our discussion here. So like, what does it mean like compressing? So for each file, it's like there's a compressed version created. This compression doesn't have a huge impact on um, normal files. Um, like for example, the index is nearly the same, but for all our framework files, you see like take the .NET JS file has like 200 kilobytes, and with compression we can bring it down to 50 kilobytes. So yeah, yeah. We could also have done the release version, and we will do release version, but release usually don't make a difference from a point of files. It's just like how the DLLs itself are optimized. But yeah, we could have done also the using different setting like debug or release. Anyway, so the result of the Blazor application, and it's important to name Blazor WebAssembly application, is, as you can see, a bunch of static files. They are just files here. And if I've never tried if I run it locally, we'll see something happen here because files are not loaded, I guess. Yep. Okay, so this is the result of what we have done. It is a bunch of files. And next step, we need to find someone or something responsible for serving these files. And this is something what a web server is for. So we're going back to VS Code, and I'm closing our WebAssembly application for now because we are finished. I closing it. I deleting. I'm deleting the my temp publish file. I'm going one level back. I'm open PowerShell window here, and I say .NET new list. And what we can't see, it's like this template here. It's like an empty web application. And just to examine what it means, like .NET new, .NET new. I want to have a web, and the name should be something like Blazor app hoster to make the purpose clear. So this template, which is this one, is applied. It's created. Here we are. Finished. Finished. And we open this application now with VS Code. I want to create the assets, which is in our case like debugger instructions. And let's have a look at the so-called program file. In a program file, we have a main method. So this is the starting point of each application in the .NET space is always main. And the main methods create a host with some arguments. And this host, as we can see, uses the startup class, which is here. Startup class has kind of configure service and configure application. And what we see here, it's like if in dev environment, they can display a kind of developer exception page, use routing, whatever that means, and use endpoint. And there we have a map get, and then we would write something. It looks pretty interesting. So let's see what the result here is. A lot of symbols, a lot of things, and like unconsciously I started the debugger, but I could also use a .NET Watch, which make it easier. So we have now a new thing here, and we see this is the result. If I would enter something different, I would get a like page not found error. Okay, so what a web server does in its kind of core competency, if you will, so it's like I stop debugging. It's like serving HTTP requests. And again, our Blazor application is nothing more than a bunch of files. So what we could do is those app use static files. And there's also something I want to change directory, going into same level. I want to go into our app hoster, .NET add help. I need to add a so-called package. And this package is a very unique name. It's the ability to host, here we are. It's the ability to host a WebAssembly file or a Blazor WebAssembly app. So, and with this method, we could use Blazor framework files, which are all of our used libraries and other stuff. And I say also another thing like endpoints, map, map fallback to file. There we are. And I think it's easier to show the result and then talk about it, what happened here. So I'm going back to my terminal. Oops. Terminal, new terminal, .NET watch run. Oh, I haven't saved it. And I also forgot to like reference our packet here. So I'm going back to our not here, not here. .NET add help. The other thing I can add, it's a reference. So it's a kind of a reference to a different project. I want to add a reference. And you can find it one for the top, BlazQ episode 6, where I have this project file. I want to rebuild it again. I think it was unnecessary to do it. Anyway, we see our huge our loading thing, and I want to open our network tab here. So first thing happened, because there's nothing here, we get a request to localhost get with nothing else which is there. So this is what this line is for. So if you don't find any endpoint listening to this, return index HTML. So the result is our index HTML file. So, and from there, we have a reference to our script, which is framework, Blazor, WebAssembly, JS. And other things, here we are. It's like, this is something which is served by static files. Because if you remember correctly, this was a thing which was introduced. Um, I need to think about where it was. Yeah, it's like it's linked to the reference project here. We will see it if we kind of publish it here. Yeah. So, and from there it goes to everything. And if we would do disable our cache, we will see if we disable our cache, we would see a lot of more requests coming from this content and framework part. Hmm. Anyway, um, so what we have created now, I think this is important here to know. It's like now we have a piece of software which is able to host our application. And if you remember last time where we have to do the publish thing, we wasn't able to start it. What we could do now, we could do the same thing. I stop it from happening here. Doing the same thing, .NET publish, and I want to have like output here should be like my temp publish. So we have seen the same thing, but differently now. I opened here app hoster. It's like, if you remember last time, there was only a web config file and a www root. And now we see a lot of more files here. And you could say this is basically our web server here. What have you done? Why it's frozen? Interesting. Hmm, totally as expected. Hmm, interesting. Um, hmm. Okay, that's interesting. Anyway, that's a good thing about virtual machine. We can easily restart it, turn it off, and start it again. It's curious. Okay, what I actually wanted to show you um, is the result here. So we have like coding practice, BlazQ, episode 6. Nope. Here we are, our app hoster, and our published directory. So now we have like a lot of different files here too, which is again the web server here. And I just want to start, and she says now listening on these ports. So copy, restore would be a good thing. . So I'm just closing, making it fresh. Now it's working, right? Because now we have um now we have like a really um working web host on that. So the next thing is to bring it into the cloud, and therefore I need to log in into Azure, and I don't want to kind of expose my credentials here, so I just showing the slides until I've finished my login process, which will, because I guess it's a new machine, also involve like two-factor authentication. But I hurry. Whatever happened. Um, doop, 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 doop. Okay, there we are back. And here. Okay. In a nutshell, Azure is one of the so-called cloud providers, and as my um, yeah, and especially if you came from some sort of European countries, you realize there is a lot of anxiety around these kind of concepts. But in a nutshell, it's like they offering your they offering you infrastructure or services, and in return you pay them. This is basically the kind of model of a cloud provider, and Azure is like the um, division from Microsoft, and we can easily host a web app here. So I'm choosing web app. I want to create a new resource group, which is nothing else than a group of resources, which you can also see if you biling thing and combining thing. I want to choose a name, BlazQ. It should be a .NET 5 application running under Linux. I can, or Windows doesn't make a difference here. I can choose a region. Central US seems nice. I want to have like a better name for it, so it's like it will be a free service, free Linux, and it is in central US. And very important, changing the size to something like 3, which is enough for everything we need. Doop, 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 doop. And we get the kind of things together, working, memory, everything is fine. And then it's starting to actually create these resources. It takes some time, maybe 1 or 2 minutes, shouldn't be more. And then we have like a fully functional web server. Um, and again, for free, which is great. Doop, doop, doop. And this, yeah. In the meantime, I want to open VS Code here. And cloud in progress. And I can close this application here. We already made our point, it's working. Now a kind of fast forward button would be amazing. Anyway, it's finished. Now I can go to a resource I will see a lot of diagrams about a lot of different things like errors, regress, response time, and I also see here my URL. So I open it in a new window. It's always the same thing, name of the application dot Azure websites dot net. At least in the free tier, you can also change it in like the paid ones. I think I will share it here. Again, first time, it's need a bit of time, and we see there's the result. We see, well, it seems like already discovered as a .NET Core application because we set it to that .NET Core. Um, yeah, so inside we have the so-called deployment center where we can choose a lot of different things how to do it, how we can um, deploy. And there's also the possibility to sit like I want to deploy from my local Git repository, which is also a nice feature. However, there are also great tools available in VS Code, which is like the Azure App Services. So it's like plugin called Azure App Service here. In the app service, I see my subscription. I see kind of what I've created before. I want to deploy. I want to deploy app hoster. I want to add a config. I want to use BlazQ as a target, and I want to always deploy it. It's creating kind of pre-deployment task, which is now doing the build process locally. The same as we have done with the publish, as you can see. The only difference here, it's like, I mean, .NET also publish. This is our source. Configuration is set to release. Again, it's like an optimization of the DLLs. And then something else is set um, to kind of control the process here. So now it's going to take a while to compress the files. And after that, it's going into this thing where it starts to deploy. Unfortunately, yesterday I see that this tool is not working anymore in this stage, or at least I don't know why it's happening in this stage. Usually it's create a kind of zip packet from the um, output directory and upload it to the app services. But again, as I said, for some reason it's not working. So I will kind of do it with Visual Studio, which is working absolutely fine. Um, yeah, and I don't know why it's not working. So yeah, so in an ideal world, you would just see, hey, it's working perfectly, and the website is online, which it does. I think I've used the extension last time in VS Code for maybe 6 months ago and was working perfectly. And I also researched um, this bug, and here it's like a persistent one. Also, others experience it. So again, but try by yourself. And if it's not working, there are great tutorials about how you could use like the local Git method in the deployment center to push it into it. Or you can also use an FTP file server and other methods. Yeah, so in my my kind of not virtual machine, I opened the files with VS Code, Visual Studio, and now I deploy it. Um, as I said, it's like a relatively easy process, but for some reason, it's not working in the extension anymore, which is really, which is really sad because it was so easy before, and it was astonishing how good it is. Anyway, it's just not working. Um, yeah, so Visual Studio has finished. I go into my virtual machine back. We open our browser. I reload the page. We see already our loading thing. And this website is now usable. It has our application there. As I said, it would be really nice to also show these in VS Code. And and the steps are exactly the same thing, but for some reason, VS Code or um, the extension inside VS Code is not able to produce the package of the application, which is like the first step in the deployment process. And yeah, so it's sad. But anyway, we've done. We have our app running on a network globally. So even if I'm now in Southeast Asia region, I was able to load it while it was hosting in central US, which it's always, I mean, in my day job, I'm a kind of a network engineer, a broadband engineer. So I would say I understand a lot of these things, how the internet really works with ISP levels and co. But it's like every time it's interesting to see it's working, and it's still magic in so many ways. Um, yeah. So our coding path for now is done. We're going briefly through our debrief, briefly through debrief, also very interesting. Um, combination here I encountered. So we going back to our slides just very briefly. Okay, I think it's very important now to remember what we have done so far. It was now 6 episodes of a lot of hurdles, a lot of knowledge, and a lot of tasks. But finally, we have created something. We have created something people can play by just entering a URL into the browser. We realized a Blazor WebAssembly application is just a bunch of files, and these files need to be served by a server or need to be distributed by a server. And modern clouds, as Azure provides a lot of services, and one of the services is like these app service with like a hosting environment for our application. Um, yeah, sadly the VS Code extension didn't work, at least for me. So it could be that you have a different setup where it's actually working. Would be nice to know. But I think hopefully in the future it will work again. And besides of this deployment feature, the plugins, there are also a lot of different other interesting things like remote debugging. Um, has never worked for you? Yeah, I think there was a time really before half a year or so. It was really working like, yeah, it was just working. But yeah, interesting. Interesting to have experience. I also read yesterday through a lot of GitHub issues. Some was dating back to 8 months ago, describing the same scenario where the application was stuck in creating package. And even if you could do it on your own, like just using the built-in zip thing in Windows, you can't skip this step. Anyway, also the local Git, it's not really complicated. There are a lot of good tutorials around it. So yeah, and I think from now it's like a clear path to the really multiplayer game. So what we're doing next, it's like that's why I call it like mid-season final. So um, it's not that we will reuse a lot what we have done before, but now we always need to think about my interaction won't be a second player on my computer. My interaction will be triggered by information I receive from from an external source like the internet. And we going and so in the end we want to have like the same experience we have now, but only while playing with um, multiple players over the internet. So yeah, next time first we create our lobby. So we talk about briefly client server model. We will talk about how we can use bidirectional communication to create interactive feelings. In the episode after that, we going into the mechanics. So someone is pushing like is the answer key and other things. So how we can send this key to the server, how can the server distribute information back to the clients, especially if there's multiple clients connected or multiple session in parallel. Um, After that, we will find ways how we could do it, like how we can save actually data, um, more than in memory. So how we can like persistency save data. We going back to things how we can create authentication, which is by the way your topic too. Yeah, so it's like in the fourth episode from now. And yeah, so again, next episode we talking about the lobby, so creating our first be highly interactive bidirectional communicational um, Blazor web application, WebAssembly application. That's a really long name. And yeah, as always, feel free to take the time to fill out the feedback form if you have anything to mention. And I always, and I especially now after six episodes, I really want to appreciate your effort. I really like to being here. I really like to talking to you. And yeah, I know it's far away from being perfect. And next time I would do so many things differently. And yeah, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for supporting me on this learning path. Thank you for giving me input. And yeah, I'm really, and I think also if we really now going into the multiplayer things, there will be um, so much more. Yeah, as I said, thank you. Thank you very much. I wish you a lovely day, lovely evening, or lovely night, and depending on your time zone. And yeah, see you next week. So have a great day. Bye.